Hi, how are you? This video is a very basic beginner's guide to help you to read music for guitar and also for bass guitar. But first of all, we'll take a look at the guitar. And what we'll be covering here is the music clef, the types of notes and rests, key signatures, we'll be looking at time signatures and bars and measures, and then we'll take a look at where the notes are on guitar. Now, what I didn't mention is that all the notes we're talking about are written on this music staff, which is 5 lines. So chances are, if you're looking at this, you already know how to play guitar, because a lot of people know how to play guitar without learning to read music. And it's a real advantage if you can. So in other videos I've done, I haven't covered the very basic. So the purpose of this video is to give you those fundamental things so that you can watch some of the other videos. Now, the first thing we're going to take a look at is the music clef. There are a number of different music clefs, and the most common one that you'll see is called the G clef or the treble clef. Now, it's called the G clef because in the olden days it was written like a letter G. These days what you have is, I'm going to do this from the tail first, right? It's like that. Now what happens is that little curl there is curled around the second line from the bottom. That second line from the bottom represents the note G. If you write anything on this line, that means it's a note G. Now we have another clef called an F clef, and guess what? That one circles around the note F. And you often see these together like this. If you play piano, then these are often showing the right and the left hand of the piano. Now, what you find on guitar is we show the guitar on the treble clef, and the bass guitar you'll find is written on the bass clef. So before we go any further, I do want to mention that when we read notes from the treble clef for guitar, we're actually playing those notes an octave lower than they are written as you would play them on the piano. And likewise with the bass clef, the notes that you play on the bass guitar are actually an octave lower than the notes that you would play on the left hand on a piano. So now let's take a look at how we actually write those notes. So I think I already mentioned that we have notes that are written either in spaces or on the line. So if you write a note in the space, what you try to do is fill that space with the dot. We'll get into different kinds of notes a little bit later, but right now let's just look at how we write the notes. So that note is in that space. Now if I write a note on the line, you want a similar sized dot. You want to make sure that the line is in the center and it doesn't touch either of the upper or lower lines. Now what I want to show you is an easy way to remember the notes that are written in the spaces and on the line. So first of all, in the spaces, if you write these notes like this, we put a dot here, a dot here, a dot here, and here. Starting from the bottom one, this is the note F. The second space above is the note A. The third space from the bottom is C. And then the top space is E. So all you have to do is remember the word face. Let's do the lines. So that bottom line is E. The second line is G. The next line is B. Then you have D, and the top line is F. All right, so this is E, G, B, D, F. The old standard thing that we use to memorize those notes is every good boy deserves fudge. So if you can remember it that way, that's fine. I just remember E, G, B, D, F. So what you do is, if you're not quite sure, let's say you want to, you write this note here and you're not sure what is that, so you just start to think, okay, that bottom was F, A, C, okay? And then if you want to find out what this note is on the top, if you remember E, G, B, D, F, that's how you memorize it. Now let's take a look at key signatures. When you're writing music, after the clef, the key signature goes right in that space right there. Now, each of these three lines that I have here has a key signature. You notice there's nothing there. This one has what's called a sharp, which the sharp, by the way, means that the note that you're playing right on that line, which is F, will be a half step higher. Or on a guitar, it will be 1 fret higher. And down here we have what's called a flat. So this being a B, that's a B flat. So it means instead of a B, you play this a fret lower. Now key signatures are going to take a little bit of explaining, so we'll leave that for another video. But just be aware that the key signature goes in the space right next to the clef. Now here has nothing. That's also a key signature. What it means is that none of the notes that you play that are written on these lines or spaces are sharp or flat. But in this case, it means that every one of these notes that's written on this line is automatically a sharp. Now we've looked at key signatures. Let's have a look now at time signatures. So time signatures are written like this with 2 letters. Now you see here the most common time signatures that you'll come across are 4/4, 3/4, and 6/8. So the bottom number means the type of note. In this case, that 4 means that you're counting quarter notes. And the 4 on the top means that you're counting 4 quarter notes in every measure. And the measures are divided up like this by what's called bar lines. And you can also call this a bar. So it can be either called a bar or a measure. All right, and in the case of the one below here where it says 3/4, you have 3 quarter notes. Below that we have another common time signature at 6/8 time. Now what the 8 means is that you're counting in 1/8 notes, and each measure has 6 of those 1/8 notes in it. So let me just show you without really getting into the type of notes. This is what you might expect to see. So these, you write quarter notes like this. And what it means here is that you can have 4 of these in every measure. Likewise, in this one, I could have 3 of these in every measure. So after writing those quarter notes like that, you put a bar line. And in this case, these are actually quarter notes, and I'm going to show you what is an 1/8 note like this. 1/8 notes you can draw like that. You can join them together. Now I'm going to write this like this. And we'll look at these in detail later on, but just be aware that these are 1/8 notes. These 2 1/8 notes take the same amount of time as one of those quarter notes. All right, so this means 6/8 time, 2, 4, 6. So the last thing I want to do in this video is talk about the different types of notes that we can write, and also their equivalent in the rest values. Remember, this time signature means you've got quarter notes, and there are 4 of them in every measure. So a quarter note is represented by a dot like this with a stem. So a quarter note is a quarter of a whole note. Now a whole note is over here. That whole note will be played for the duration of 4 counts. All right, so the next note that we're going to take a look at is the 1/8 note. Now an 1/8 note has half the time value of a quarter note. What it means is that you can play 2 of these 1/8 notes in the space of a quarter note. So in this case, you've got quarter notes going like this. The 1/8 notes would be twice that speed, and they would go like this. Now this note here is a half note. So a half note, you can figure out from that, if that's a quarter note and that's a half note, that one is going to be twice as long as the quarter note. So if you grew up in England like me, you know that this is a crotchet. And I believe this is a quaver. And I believe this is and we have something like a semi-breve and a semi-demi breve. I'm not going to teach those because I forgot what they are, but this is the American system, and we talk about quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, and whole notes, which I think is a much easier system, at least in my mind, to be able to understand. Now let's take a look at the rests. This is a quarter note rest, these are eighth note rests, and the half note rest is written above the middle line, and it's kind of a square blocky thing like that. And the whole note rest is written below this second line from the top. So you could put any of these in place of the notes above, and what it means is instead of playing the note, you would just have silence for wherever you put the rest. So what I basically covered, we've covered the clefs, where you write the key signatures, the time signatures, and the different note durations. Quarter notes, eighth notes, half notes, whole notes. The next time what I want to do is to give you an overview of key signatures and how they are written and what they mean. So subscribe to the channel if you want to be informed of when that video comes out. So whether we're talking about guitar or not, it's good to stay tuned, and I'll see you soon.